Welcome into another edition of the Sunday Side Session. I am Mike Schaefer. Yes, that is my real voice right now, and it's going to be a struggle. But like Nebraska struggled defensively in that first drive to get off the field, ultimately good things will come at the end of it. I know that, and we are here to break down Nebraska's 34-3 win over Northern Iowa. KETV's own Lauren Michelson joining me here on Sunday to get into this game. We were talking, Lauren, right before we came on. I asked you because I noticed that you have not been at games this season, and that is a bit of a departure from where things have been the last couple of years. What is your new game day role with KETV now?
Right. Yeah. So as the weekend sports anchor, I'm in studio on Saturdays for the first time, as you mentioned, in 2 years, which is a little weird because there's nothing like that game day atmosphere. We were talking, especially just that Colorado game. I mean, I would have loved to be there, but especially with these night games, it's a quick turnaround to get content on air, get highlights. We're taking live shots. So yeah, I'm in studio. I'm watching the game on TV, taking incessant notes, and then I'm texting Andy and letting him know which highlights we want to air in the show. And so it's kind of like an artwork of having to send back the right plays on time to get them in the show. And then I host our big Red Zone game day coverage on KTV at 10 o'clock, usually after the game, always after the game on ABC. So we were on until 10:30 last night. I don't think we got off air until like after 11 because we went late. So it was a long night for all of us, but it's great. I mean, the boys, Matt Satilli, Andy Kendi, are at the stadium. We have a photographer down low, a photographer up top, and then Andy goes live with Sean Callahan a bit too. So we got a lot going on.
Yeah, well, I imagine like everyone else, you were kind of excited when that first quarter was over. 25 minutes into the game. That game did not need to start at 6:30 at night. Just to get my general gripe out of the way, because getting to bed at 2 a.m. following Nebraska Northern Iowa doesn't seem necessary to me. But here we are.
11 a.m. kick for that would have been perfect, especially
they could have kicked that at 8 a.m. and I think people would have understood.
What did Matt say earlier this week? Eggs and eggs and football.
Yeah, well, I found just that a lot of people involved with college football, as much as they love that night game atmosphere and everything that comes with it, having to sit in the hotel all day and just thinking versus just being able to get up and play right away. And then I think especially, with the coaches that come from the NFL where you have that Sunday noon kick or 1 p.m. on the East Coast. I mean, I think that you kind of get used to getting that played. And so when you're sitting around waiting for that 6:30 kick, it's a long time. A little bit different when it's Northern Iowa than Colorado or even Illinois on Friday. So Friday is still part of the weekend, right? So you'll still be back in the they won't let you sneak out.
I know. I can't. I think the only game I'm confirmed to go to right now is Iowa to end the season and the regular season. So that'll be fine. But Friday is going to look weird because, of course, it's a Friday night kick. The game doesn't start till 7. So we're on deadline with a hard show start at 10 o'clock at night. So it's like, are we going to get highlights on air? And then, high school football is still going on. We're in week 4 of that. So a lot of things to juggle Friday, which is the greatness of fall, and that's okay.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into this Northern Iowa game. We'll just start with this. I'll leave it very open-ended. You can go anywhere you want with it. Give me a couple takeaways you had from Nebraska's performance on Saturday against Northern Iowa. Again, 34-3 win for the Huskers.
Well, Dylan Raiola obviously continues to impress. The passing game last night was phenomenal. And in a game against Colorado where we really saw the rushing attack take a step up, I think we really saw Raiola make use of all his different weapons on offense. I mean, I think it counted last night 10 different receivers caught balls last night. I mean, that is, talk about a depth. That's something Matt Rule's been trying to build. They have that. I mean, then you look at the first three touchdowns of the game, Nelson, Nair, and Barney, I think, all guys with first career touchdowns as a Husker. So I think I'm just really impressed, not only with obviously Dylan's brain, the poise, and he's just a rare breed for a freshman, as we've seen, but just the fact that they have so many dudes that can make plays. But then I was a little disappointed in their defensive performance, just kind of a sluggish first half. I think halftime interview, Rule told Big Ten Network, Northern Iowa is the more physical team right now. Their tackling was sloppy. I mean, just some things that I know Tony White is not going to be happy with when we talked to him on Tuesday. Malcolm Hartzog did get that interception in the third quarter finally, which of course those takeaways, the big thing that he's pushing. But yeah, just they fell a little flat in this game. And, Ty Robinson, Isaac Gifford, those dudes owned up to it. They did not like their performance, and that's fine. But yeah, defense fell a little flat, but I think a lot to be happy with on the offensive side. Rule was really happy about it last night too.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime they had 4 drives in the first half, you score touchdowns on 3 of the 4. The one you don't score on was a 4th and 3 where you're in field goal range, and I'm curious if maybe the decision is a little bit different in a different kind of game, or if you want to use this as a moment where we're going to have to be able to get those. We can't rely on field goals, and so and I even feel like on that play that might have been one of the rare times on Saturday where Dylan might have missed a guy who was open elsewhere earlier in that play, but to score 3 out of your first 4 with touchdowns, and then they were like very easy drives. I mean, one of the things that stood out about yesterday is that once again, second straight game, Dylan Raiola not sacked. There wasn't a lot of negative yardage plays. I mean, they were able to stay in rhythm kind of throughout, and then that sets you up with third mediums or second and mediums, and you just kind of continue to sustain drives. I thought that the efficiency the offense showed coming off of was a pretty choppy, ugly second half against Colorado. I actually thought that was kind of a nice. They hit the ground running, like I said, 3 out of 4 drives with touchdowns. I wanted to ask you just general thoughts on Carter Nelson and seeing a guy. I know that you love covering the high school football. I don't know how often so far you've been able to get out to 8-man games in your career here in Nebraska, but to see an 8-man player as a true freshman scoring a touchdown in his third game, and he looks like he belongs. Like he does not look out of place at all. And Carter Nelson is just 18 years old at this point. There's a lot of enthusiasm about what he could be going forward.
I mean, unbelievable. I mean, I can't imagine how loud the stadium was when you see that one freshman connection on the first drive of the game. I mean, amazing 24-yard reception from him. And I mean, I've never covered an 8-man game. I was in studio for 2 years on Friday nights. Now I'm finally in the field reporting, but I can't imagine how difficult some things have been for him to just relearn, and just, the fundamentals are the same, but it's just a whole new ball game. You're at the college level, but they've done him so well, and they're really utilizing him in a great way. And I think to finally see him, reach the end zone, and that's got to be probably the best moment of his life. Honestly, it's like his celebration was great, and I expect to see a lot more from him. And it's just really cool when you see a homegrown kid capitalize on a big play there and make something happen.
You kind of wonder what the decibel level coming out of the city of Ainsworth out in north central. I don't know how they feel about being northwestern Nebraska. Let's say north central Nebraska, and how loud things might have been over there. I know that's a community with a lot of pride about having a Husker, and then a kid as good as that already as a freshman. Just a nice start for him. And he wasn't the only true freshman. You mentioned Ja'Cory Barney got his first career touchdown as well, as Nebraska hit on an end around. I don't know about you, Lauren. I get excited every time Ja'Cory Barney has the ball. There's like a different level of sort of enthusiasm, and that's not to take away from anybody else that's on the offense, but there's something about the way that he moves where you're like, man, he might juke 6 guys out on this play, or he might rip off a spin move, get around the corner, and then just beat everybody to the pylon. Like he has a very, very twitchy athlete, someone that I think is really exciting to play. And it was good to see him get a touchdown last night and not see a penalty flag on the field, because it seems like every time he touches the ball, it's negated.
Yeah. He's one of the Miami guys, right?
Yeah, he's from Miami. He was a big recruiting win for Garrett McGuire.
There you go. So, and the rules said like multiple times, including him, these guys from Miami, they play ball like they're at recess, like backyard football. They're just having fun with it. They're just kind of fearless, and you could see that out of him. He's bound to make big plays happen. And it was awesome. And again, I'm sure that stadium erupted when that happened, because we've been kind of waiting. But I mean, he's a guy where, when he's on the field, I feel confident, and I'm sure Nebraska fans can totally agree.
Through 3 games now, and you kind of mentioned you felt like they started running the ball better against Colorado, and then did it well last night too, where no individual ball carrier had more than 6 carries. I think Emmett Johnson led the way in terms of yardage. I don't have the stats right in front of me. He had the big 36-yard touchdown at the end. But you feel okay about where Nebraska's at with its rushing attack right now?
Yeah, a lot better than I did week 1 when there was no clear defined number 1 back, and we were like, okay, who's going to emerge here as the leading rusher? But last week, I'm like, oh God, Dante Dowdell's the guy. I mean, he's just a big physical back that I feel like we haven't seen for Nebraska in a while. But then last night, yeah, Emmett Johnson really impressed me. He broke away for that 36-yard run, and I think the fact that they have 2 great options, and then you can, get Ramir in there, and depending, sometimes it can be a little predictable, what they're going to do when he comes in. That didn't see as much of that last night, which was good, but happy for Emmett, and Gabe Ervin Jr. is another option. But yeah, Dowdell, Emmett Johnson, I feel really good about those 2 and their ability just to continue to move down the field, and they just run through your face. Like, they're just physical guys. And like I said, we just haven't had that in a while.
Yeah, it seemed like last night was a well-scheduled game for Nebraska as you're about to head into Big Ten play to go against a team that is kind of stout in the middle defensively. They want to stop your run game, and they want to run on you, and that's a lot of what you're going to face in the Big Ten coming up. And so I thought that was kind of important. One thing to note coming out of that game, we'll see. Matt Rhule was kind of, I wouldn't say evasive, but he wasn't super forthcoming on the Micah Mazuka situation. We're going to learn more on that. It was a coach's decision as to why Micah Mazuka did not play on Saturday. What exactly that means and what that means going forward will be something to kind of keep an eye on. It felt like at times against Colorado and certainly against UTEP, Micah Mazuka and Ben Scott really kind of made for a nice tandem there right in the middle of your offensive line. And so I'll be curious, what ultimately comes of that. If it's just a 1-game thing, certainly seems like it was a team discipline, just to recklessly speculate here on a Sunday morning. But, we'll see what Matt Rhule has to say. I'm guessing on Monday we're going to get a full answer. And Henry Lutovsky stepped in, and it didn't feel like there was a big drop-off, but it does feel like there's at least a little, where if Micah Mazuka is available for you and all things are good again, he's probably going to be back in there on the offensive line.
Yeah, I would hope he's back for Illinois, because they're going to need, all hands on deck. And he's just a talented, very, very experienced offensive lineman. So yeah, that was weird. He just kind of ended it at coach's decision. So yeah, I'm sure we'll hear on Monday, but definitely I was surprised to see that yesterday afternoon for sure.
I would love to get your thoughts on Dylan Raiola through 3 games. I always like to ask different media people kind of how they feel like he's played so far, and then to have them weigh it against what their expectations were. Because you hear 5-star recruit, 5-star quarterback, and then you look in 2023, a lot of those guys didn't play. They were in situations where they were behind other quarterbacks. They weren't Dylan Raiola, where it was, they were announced a starter for their respective teams. I watched a fair amount of college football in the 11 a.m. kick on Saturday, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself here, but Dylan Raiola already looks to be in the upper echelon of college quarterbacks to me. Now, that I think says as much about him as it does sort of the state of where the position is at. But I'm curious, how do you feel like he has played through 3 weeks? And what does that do for how you think about Nebraska's next 9 games?
Yeah, Matt Rhule's preached so far through 3 games that the strength of Dylan Raiola is not just his arm talent, it's just his brain. He is so smart. He's so aware in the pocket. His ability to make reads and make plays happen, and his expectation for his receivers to go out and follow through with what he does has been extremely impressive. He does not seem like a freshman by any means. I don't think I've ever seen a freshman quarterback play the way that he has through 3 games. And it's extremely impressive and gives me a lot of hope and confidence for Big Ten play. Now, things are going, Friday is going to be a big test. I think we're going to learn a lot more on Friday, but I think he's been tested a little bit And his ability to just stay calm and own up to things. His first interception last night, he owned up to that. Who knows if that was a Jalen Lloyd's fault? I mean, whatever. Both of those two owned up to it, but no, we had a lot of high expectations entering the season. You kind of hoped that he was going to be what you thought a 5-star quarterback would be. And I think through 3 games, he's absolutely completed what we thought. I mean, he's been phenomenal. And again, it just comes down to his awareness of the game, his brain, how he's able to make plays happen, and just his confidence in the guys around him to make things happen too. He's a team first dude. He's not, no frills, no fluff there. He wants to win. He wants to make things happen, and he's answered the call early on so far. So I hope that he can continue it now that we enter Big Ten play. But as we know, the Big Ten's a physical conference, and it's going to be a test on Friday night.
Yeah, it was kind of remarkable. His first interception comes on a play where he maybe throws it a little bit different. It's a touchdown, but it was a 50-50 ball. When it happened, I'm still not convinced at this point it was an actual interception. It really felt like they had joint possession going to the ground. So I don't know how you award it to one over the other. I think Matt Rule thought the same, and that's why he went ahead with the challenge. Also, they were up 27-3. So wasn't like he was super concerned about saving those timeouts for an end of game scenario. But it was one of those where sitting in the press box, you watch that whole thing develop, and you're thinking, oh man, they're going to hit on an 80-yard touchdown here, and they are going to eventually. Those two are going to combine. It's been just a little off each time, but those two are going to combine on several exciting plays in conference season. I mean, we saw last year Jalen Lloyd can be a difference maker down the field. He's been a difference maker at times for Nebraska this year. It's just been slightly like the ball has either been underthrown or Lloyd wasn't able to bring in that one against Colorado.
Yeah.
But I am still very bullish on those two creating some fantastic highlights as we get into Big Ten season.
I think the best thing is that we are only through 3 weeks. So like this offense is going to continue to grow and get better, and their connections are going to be better. And everything that we see now is going to be heightened. And yes, they're going to be battle tested very early on in conference play with the undefeated Illinois team. But I think that's and the biggest thing, like I mentioned earlier, like the depth of these dudes on offense. There's so many options from running back to receiver that you got to feel confident in. It's just, it makes you feel good. So we'll see. But
let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. You said that I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm trying to remember. I think you said that you were a little disappointed with how the defense started the game. I don't think you were alone. Giving up a 10-minute drive in which you're not able to get off the field on third down is not going to win the affection and the love of Tony White during film day when they go through that here on Sunday and Monday. But what takeaways did you have from Saturday? Could it just be as simple as it's hard to be as hyped as they were 2 games in a row, and particular when the opponent is Northern Iowa and not Colorado?
I think, of course, the juice ahead of the Colorado game was there. Like that, you can't replicating that, especially back-to-back weeks, is going to be hard. However, I think it just comes down to the basics. The tackling was super inconsistent against, a physical rushing attack. So I just, and Rule said that coming out at halftime, and he said it post-game too. And even, your Giffords and your Robinsons and White's going to say the same thing on Tuesday. It just comes down to making those tackles and being in the right spot. And, there's smart guys they have there. Like they're doing their job, but I just think it was a little too inconsistent. And they've been kind of talking about that inconsistent tackling all off season and then into the season too. So obviously it's still something they're working to improve, but I don't think they forced a 3 and out until the fourth quarter against Northern Iowa. Yeah. That's gotta be more of a consistency thing, especially as we enter conference play. So I'm happy, seeing Malcolm Hartzog have a second straight game with the interceptions. It's great. Forcing more takeaways, always a good thing. But the tackling it needs to be better.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the takeaway a lot of people had, especially in that first half, where it felt like Nebraska would get somebody there against a Northern Iowa running back, but just couldn't get them down. It felt like a lot of arm tackling, or a lot of going for maybe the big hit and then just watching the guy bounce off of you. And that, I think, is something that we saw at times last year. They can be an incredibly good tackling team. So I know that's in there for this defense. I do wonder, do you think it makes kind of a difference when you don't have guys like Mekhi Bayer and Jamari Butler, who, especially during the Colorado week, maybe emerged as a little bit of the emotional heartbeat of Nebraska's defense? Both of those guys. I know Butler is for sure. But Mekhi Bayer, I mean, he also is someone who he had a lot to say before that Colorado game, and he backed it up tired. And he was out in the first half because of the targeting call from the Colorado game.
No, absolutely. I mean, this team, they're big culture guys to begin with. Like, they feed off the energy of each other. Butler is and Bayer, both of them are big leaders in that unit. And Butler was really missed last night, I think. And what's the deal with him? Did Rule say anything about his return?
I think it was very much a precautionary. We don't need him against Northern Iowa. I think, got banged up against Colorado. He referred to it as soreness.
Okay.
So that he was still feeling sore from the Colorado game. I don't want to say that Nebraska did not take this game seriously, because they absolutely did. But I don't think that they viewed it as it had to be all hands on deck. I think they very much wanted to get out of this game with no injuries, take care of business, and then move on into conference play. And I think that's why you saw a guy like Jamari Butler out for Saturday's contest.
Which that was the right move then, in fact. But yeah, those guys are big presences when they're out there, and saving them for Illinois, that's fine. Like, hopefully that can make a huge difference come Friday night.
Lauren, who on the defensive side of the ball has kind of stood out to you so far this year? As you kind of look at where Nebraska's at, they've given up a grand total of 20 points across 3 games. 7 to UTEP, 10 to Colorado, and 3 to Northern Iowa on Saturday night. That's pretty remarkable. That doesn't happen very often. There's a number of stats that have popped up where I think it's been 10 straight games that they've held someone under 400 yards, which they haven't done since 2009. I want to say 3 straight games where the point total has been under 10 or under, which they haven't done since like 2005.
Yeah.
This defense has played really, really well. It's been a collection of them, but is there an individual player or two that you're just watching your TV there in studio and you're just like, you did it again?
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing when, you ask me like my thoughts on the defense and, tackling, and then there's not too many other glaring issues. And then, you've held all these opponents so far to less than 10 points. We're being picky here. Like, that's something that a year ago we would have loved.
It's a beautiful thing.
Right.
Nebraska fans haven't been picky for a while. It's a weird feeling to be like, oh, this is kind of a disappointing 34-3 win.
Right. We are picky, and there's flashes of it last season, but now it's like you have a real confidence in their ability. And Ty Robinson, he had flashes of it last season, but he is just a dude out there. He's just like physical, putting his body on the line. Was it him that ran off the field? The Big Ten showed it last night, and like body slammed Jack Potenza off the on the sideline.
I think he's done that several weeks now.
And now they're just going for a high five.
Yeah. It was after the Colorado sack that he had on the first possession. He did a chest bump with someone, and they had the cameras on it, and you watch the chest bump happen, and then you realize the person that he hit just flew out of the picture of the camera. Like, you don't see him anymore.
Yeah.
He is a big guy.
It's huge.
It's remarkable. It really is.
Yeah, so I guess the Big Ten was saying on the broadcast that they like changed their post-game celebration. No more chest bumps, or just they're high-fiving or something. But that was funny. But yeah, he's been super impressive. Malcolm Hartsock, he's only a sophomore. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think
he's a junior.
Okay.
He was here in 22, 23, 24. So he's a junior, yeah.
So I've covered him since he got here. He's always been consistent, but the fact that he's gone 2 straight now with a pick is really impressive to me. And John Butler, he is he has been extremely, and good John Bullock, sorry, extremely impressive.
What happened?
Yeah, through 3 games.
I wondered if that's what. I was like, okay, well, the defensive backs coach has had a nice.
I mean, yeah, I'm
games,
impressed with John Butler, but John Bullock. I mean, talk about a dude that is always lined up and is able to read the offense so well, despite whatever is going on. Like, he is always in the right place at the right time. He on Hartzog's pick 6 last week, he was lined up and had his eyes completely the right spot, and oh god, he was just really impressive on that play. And you're watching Malcolm, but you're like, but Bullock's like exactly where he should be and is reading so well. So he's been great through the first 3 games too. So they've got a lot of dudes, honestly.
Yeah, John Bullock has been really impressive. I mean, he was again last night. Again, someone maybe in the first half, you're like, the tackling hasn't been particularly clean. And it's hard because I thought he played a phenomenal game against Colorado. I mean, he was all over the field, hair on fire. He was kind of getting after the Colorado sideline early in that game. Just like, and I don't really think of him as someone who's going to be a talker, really, when he's out there, and he was letting them have it. And then he was backing it up with his play. His first half against Northern Iowa, didn't notice him as much, or if I did, he was kind of letting some guys leak through on some of those carries. Second half, he gets the tackle for a loss. He's batting a ball in the air. You look up at the end of the game, I think he's leading the team in tackles, solo tackles for a loss. He had a pass deflection. He had the lone sack. I'm pretty sure he was like right there on the ground next to whoever recovered the fumbled snap on the 4th down. He has just kind of played like a maniac. And I did not know what to expect in a year without Luke Reimer or Nick Henrich. And again, I said this last week, I don't want to offend those guys, but it doesn't feel like Nebraska misses them when you have John Bullock and Mekhi Bear playing as well as they have.
Yeah, you're so right. And you got to be so happy for, Bullock specifically, his decision to come back. I think he said, like, when they held that big media day preseason, and he's just like, I came back because I don't want to end my career the way we did last year. He's like, I want this so badly. I want to finish strong. I believe this is the team to do it. And I just have a bad taste in my mouth. So it's just, you got to be so happy for a guy like him, homegrown kid again, that this is playing out so far great, and especially that his unit has been so impressive too, and that he's answered the call completely and really stepped up in a big way for this team also.
You mentioned Malcolm Hartzog with the pick 6. It was Tommy Hill. And that's again, they play so many people. It's easy to and especially with the single digits, you have to be, I've run into this too. And then their jack linebackers are all like 17, 18, 19.
Yes.
I have gotten that wrong. So, it definitely happens. Tommy Hill had the pick 6 last week. Northern Iowa wasn't going to challenge him much. I am kind of excited because he faces an Illinois offense that isn't great at passing the ball, but they've got one receiver in Pat Bryant that's by far their best receiver. So it'll be kind of fun to see Tommy Hill go against. We saw it with Travis Hunter, and he had a very, if 110 yards could ever be quiet, Travis Hunter did it against Nebraska in the second week of the season, and Tommy Hill was a part of that. I'm really looking forward to seeing if he has the ability against these kind of second-tier Big Ten teams to just take a receiver out of the game. As we kind of spin this thing forward, looking to the Illinois game on Friday, what they do defensively against the Illini, who have struggled to run the ball all year, struggled again against Central Michigan, have had to kind of play through the air. And I think that actually is going to benefit Nebraska a little bit. And I'm very curious if we see Tommy Hill. I don't know if he'll follow Pat Bryant around, but I kind of hope he does. That's going to be kind of a fun matchup that, before the season, I certainly wasn't circling the Illinois game thinking, I want to see Tommy Hill against Patrick Bryant. But here we are, and he had 2 touchdowns, 120 yards against, I think it was 120, against Central Michigan on Saturday. He's, I think, caught almost every pass that has been thrown his way this season. So Tommy Hill, Patrick Bryant, that's your early look ahead matchup.
Okay.
Anything that you're excited about for the Illinois game coming up?
I'm just excited because, I'm happy they're getting Illinois. It's probably going to be a ranked matchup, which is great. In 7:00 kick. I mean, just all the hype around it is great, but it's just a test that we need, that Nebraska needs early. A good physical team, and this matchup every year I feel like comes down to the wire, give or take. It's just a
It
good
really has.
Big Ten game. You're like, God, this is taking forever, and so it's gonna be good, and I think we're gonna have a lot of answers about this Nebraska team after Friday night. Like, how legit is this defense? How does Dylan Raiola do with even more pressure? And I think after that we can really sit there and say, this is the team we think it is, and I feel confident in them heading into this one. I'm really anxious to see what Tony White says, just his scouting report on Illinois come Tuesday when we get to chat with him and some players and Marcus Satterfield as well. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a really good game. It's going to be a Big Ten brawl, and it's going to give us a lot of answers on where this Nebraska team stands.
If Nebraska fans needed a little extra juice going into Friday's game against Illinois, the Huskers have not won at home against the Illini since 2018, I believe, which was Adrian Martinez's freshman season, to go all the way back. And so it's an opportunity against a team that's kind of been a thorn in Nebraska's side. In 2022, that was a game Casey Thompson got hurt, and Nebraska was hanging right there against an Illinois team that almost won the Big Ten West. And then in 2020, and this is before your time, Lauren, it was a nightmare game during COVID for Nebraska. I think Luke McCaffrey started that game. Very first play, I believe he had like a backwards pass fumble. Nebraska got absolutely decked by a Lovie Smith Illini team, and that was one of the many low points of the Scott Frost era. So Nebraska they beat the Illini in Illinois in 2023, but otherwise, I mean, they lost in 22, they lost in 21, they lost in 2020. I think they squeaked out a win in 2019 in Champaign, and then they beat them up in 2018. It's been one of those series where, for the most part, the Illini have been, like I said, a thorn in Nebraska's side. So it's quietly a game where, you think Nebraska, Illinois, kind of shrug-worthy, but there's some real history there with these teams. So it should be fun on Friday.
No, you're so right. And it's interesting. I have to ask you about this. Being a Kansas City native and a Chiefs fan, I see so much chirping online about, and now from Illinois fans as well, about Dylan. Just the weirdest thing in sports right now is Dylan copying Patrick Mahomes in every sense. I'm like, do people realize they have the same trainer? Like Bobby Stroop is working with both of them. They've worked together. And so, last night as I'm finishing things and I'm already seeing Illinois fan comments about Patrick Mahomes 2.0 wannabe, and it's just very interesting because I'm just like, guys, do your research. Like, what's your take on fans who sit there and say he's copying Mahomes down to every single thing when it's like, they're training the same way, and that's why you see a lot of these similarities.
What's remarkable is that having followed Dylan Raiola for 3 years prior to him even arriving at Nebraska, I never once thought of comparing those two or had really noticed it. And then I think it was over the spring where the spring game, he was talking about, I'm going to go down to Kansas City and train with Patrick Mahomes. I was like, no, that's pretty cool. And then during during the summer camps or recruiting camps, this couple from Kansas City, like a Kansas City suburb, comes up to me, and their sons are in this camp, and they're pointing in the middle of the field. And they're like, who's the guy wearing 15 that looks a lot like Patrick Mahomes? And it was like the first time I'd really ever considered it. And now it's like a full-fledged thing. Like, you have recruits like Dawson Merritt talks about it every time I've talked to him. You have Patrick Mahomes is answering questions about Dylan Raiola ahead of, I don't remember who the Chiefs play today.
The
Who do
Bengals.
they play today? The Bengals, yeah. Yeah, so they're facing what has been a thorn in their side, and the Bengals, he's over here being asked about Dylan Raiola. And he gave a really great answer about when he grew up, it was all he wanted to be Alex Rodriguez. And you think about being a kid, if you were really into sports, I can remember emulating certain pitchers or wanting to, have the same motion or the same swing as different hitters, things of that nature. And so I kind of understand it, but yeah, it's a little uncanny. And here's the thing: if he keeps winning, those comparisons aren't going to stop. And if he keeps playing as well as he is, those comparisons aren't going to stop. So the Illini fans might want to be careful here because they might just get the Patrick Mahomes version of Dylan Raiola on Friday.
1,000%. No, he's been. I mean, when I watch the game, I obviously write down every play that I'm interested in showing in the TV highlights. And I kid you not, there was because I am a Chiefs fan. At one point, I literally wrote Mahomes, and I'm like, God, what am I doing? So we're kind of into that track of the comparison between the two. But no, Dylan Raiola is carving his own path here. He is without a doubt an extremely, extremely talented quarterback who deserves to be recognized individually for what he's doing as a freshman in his first 3 starts and what he's going to do at Nebraska. So, give him his flowers for that. Although early in the season, but it is a fun thing. And the people saying it's the weirdest thing in sports, I'm like, come on, take a look around.
There's a lot of weird things in sports. I don't think you have to go too far to find something else to trump that. I want to finish up asking about special teams. Lauren,
Yeah.
I know that you were here in 2022. Were you at the Class A title game where Tristan Alvano hit the 5 field goals? Did you? I know that a Lincoln School wasn't playing at that time, but were you still there grabbing footage for Channel 8 at the time?
I was there for the first half, and then I think my coworker finished it out.
Better than me. That was a cold, cold day. And I stayed on the couch and watched Nebraska Public Media broadcasted to my large television, which was a far more enjoyable experience, I think, than being down there for it. We saw Tristan Alvano go 5 for 5 that day, made a game-winning field goal. He's had big kicks in his kicking career pre-college. Yeah. It's been a bit of a struggle. How important do you think it was that he went 2 for 2 on a couple short field goals on Saturday?
I mean, just for his confidence, we know he can do it. He has the talent. I think a lot of it's like mental for him, maybe. I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth. We haven't had a chance to speak with Tristan recently. But no, that is huge for his confidence. Huge for his confidence. You know he can do it. You saw him obviously 2 years ago be outstanding. He's had his ups and downs, but he's still a younger player. It's 3 games into his second season. So no, that was big. Special teams looked incredibly improved from last week. And Ed Foley's a great coach. I don't know what they work on, but he's the man to help fix whatever problems mentally and I know Tristan had a little tweak, I think, in his groin or something also. So
been a little banged up.
Yeah. So that was big, and I'm happy for him, and I feel still confident in him and what he can do to, on Friday. So.
All right, Lauren. Well, I appreciate your time here this morning as we got to recap the Nebraska Northern Iowa game, talked a little about Illinois ahead. I won't get the opportunity to talk to you probably throughout the rest of the week, at least in terms of a recorded thing. Do you want to put a prediction on the record here already for this upcoming Nebraska-Illinois game? 2 states that sandwich your home state of Missouri.
Yeah. I'll
You're
tell you.
Kind of Switzerland in this one a little bit.
I know I am. I'm the middle ground here, and I have family who are fans of both teams. So I'll say this: I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to come down to a field goal. It's going to be it could be that Tristan Alvano that it comes down to. So I think both teams put up a few touchdowns, but I think it's going to be a really close game like we've seen, and hopefully Nebraska can finally have the edge in this one at home, which would be great.
All right. Lauren Michelson, you can catch her work at KETV. She's the studio anchor for Saturday, for the weekend. So you'll see her stuff throughout Nebraska's game day coverage over there at KETV. You can get plenty of Nebraska game day coverage over at Husker 24/7 and coverage all week long as well. We invite you to check out everything we have going on at Husker247.com. For Lauren Michelson, I'm Mike Schaefer. We'll catch you next time.